Happy Wednesday, friends. This is Neil Adler with another episode of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Happy Hump Day. Hope everyone's having a great week so far. Men's and women's basketball last couple days been at the annual ACC tip-off event in Charlotte. It still hasn't completely sunk into me that Syracuse, the basketball programs are going to start their seasons in less than a month. Like I've said before on here, we're so ingrained in football and whatnot, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's like happening soon. So, um, yeah. JJ Starling and Donnie Freeman, the two returnees from last season's debacle, were both at the ACC Media Day, part of the tip-off event, along with Coach Autry. Um, and I just wanted to talk briefly about both Donnie and JJ in these first two segments because they're the two returning guys from last year's team. And Starling, this is his third year at Syracuse. It will be his third year. He's from Baldwinsville. He missed 7 games last year due to a hand. He broke his left hand actually. But he's the leader of this team. They have other guys on the roster that are veteran players in terms of the number of years they've been in college, but this is JJ Starling's team, right? It's got to be. I mean, I guess you could say it's Nate George's team, so to speak, because he's going to be the starting point guard, but this is JJ Starling's team. And then with Donnie Freeman, who I'm going to get into more right now, he's a sophomore, but again, he was having a great freshman year last year, and then he got injured and only appeared in 14 games. And, when he was talking to reporters, what I found interesting, he talked, about the injury last year and kind of like the process about, what to do and when they could release information. And I know some Syracuse fans were frustrated about the lack of information being put out there by Syracuse, but there's, privacy laws and HIPAA and all that. But the one thing I remember this last year, obviously Syracuse Central wasn't around at that point, but and doing my work for other places, I remember like when it finally came out there, or like the speculation about Donnie was going to be out for the year, and I just remember a ton of fans saying on social media, "Oh, he's gone, he's not coming back, he's transferring, 100%." And I kept saying, I was like, look, I don't necessarily have inside info on this particular topic, but I don't think he's transferring. And I know Syracuse stunk last year, but uh, part of that had to do with Donnie and JJ missing games, and then other factors as well. But Donnie was having a good freshman year. I think it was averaging like 13-6, 13-7, something like that. But he flat out said that he never considered transferring. I don't want to be like I told you so to other fans, because that's just obnoxious. But I told you so. So I didn't think he was going to transfer. I really didn't, and he wasn't going to go pro, having only played in less than half the season, and you didn't have the draft buzz and all that. But in recent days, my buddy Jamie Shaw with On Three Rivals had like his breakout sophomores, and he put Donnie on there. And I've seen other places where he's listed as like a preseason All ACC, whether I'm not saying first team, but second team, third team. He's definitely getting some buzz, or whatever you want to call it, in terms of people are expecting him to have, or anticipating him to have a really good sophomore season, and I agree with that. I do. I covered Donnie extensively, from a recruiting standpoint, because I cover recruiting, but he's also from DC. He played his senior at IMG, but he's from the DMV like me. And I just, and certainly his senior year, he was great for IMG, and he got up to number 6 in the final 2024 national rankings. And, once, as I think I said yesterday on Syracuse Central, once Autry got the head coaching job, when Boeheim stepped down or resigned or was fired, or I don't know. No, he didn't get fired, but they didn't handle that well. But, once Autry was instilled in there, and they got Brendan Strong, I mean, their DC, their DMV recruiting connections are just really strong. This current staff, and, Donnie went on an official visit, and I think it was April of a couple of years ago, and then he verbally committed in May. I guess what was that, 2023? I don't even remember. Doesn't really matter. He's on the team. He's a sophomore. um, I just think he's going to be good, really good this year. He is ultra athletic. He plays above the rim, just like everyone else on the team last year. He needs to work on his defense, or I'm sure he has been working on his defense. But the team as a whole needs to get better, and I think it's a more athletic team this year. So I think hopefully their defense will be better, and he can shoot from outside. I remember Paul Biancardi, the recruiting director, national recruiting director at ESPN, who I talk to once in a while. I'm not saying I'm like buddies with him, but I've talked to him a handful of times over the years. And, he told me a couple of times that Donnie was the most improved player in the 2024 national class. And part of that was his improving his 3-point shooting. So I don't remember off the top of my head what he shot last year from deep for Syracuse. It wasn't great. I mean, the team as a whole wasn't great, but he can shoot it from three. He can. So he's I think he's, again, if he's doing well rebounding and he can get out in transition, get some buckets that way, I think he's going to have a really good year. But I just wanted to close in talking about Donnie, that like sometimes us as fans, and I'm a fan, Syracuse is my alma mater, but sometimes us as fans, we like to make prognostications when we really have no idea what we're talking about. And that's like the downside of social media, because everyone just throws up, not literally, figuratively, with their opinions all over Facebook and X and whatever, all over. And it's just like, but I mean, don't get me wrong, social media is good for a lot of things as well. But I, I'm glad Donnie came out and said, "Look, I never considered transferring," because all the fans that said that can eat crow now, and we'll leave it at that. All right, so we'll move to JJ, and I've talked about JJ a couple times, I believe, in terms of his. So he broke his left hand last year and missed 7 games, but then like a couple of times, like I think it was technically still the summer, like either in August or into September, like on the Syracuse basketball social media account, they showed a picture of him with like some type of splint or wrap or something on his right hand, on his shooting hand, and there was also like I think there was like an Instagram story. I don't remember. It was from a while back, but and I asked the team spokesperson about it, and that person said they couldn't comment because it wasn't official practice. And then once it was official practice, and I asked, I kind of got the runaround again. But like whatever, it's all good. Mike Waters of the Post Standard and Syracuse.com had reported not too long ago that Starling didn't expect to miss any games as a result of this right hand. Looks like I think he broke one of the fingers, middle finger, it looks like, according to Syracuse.com. Anyway, but the most important thing here is at the ACC tip-off event, Starling talked about he's 100%, he's good to go. Adrian Autry said he's not concerned about it. He doesn't need like a splint or anything to protect it. But he said he's back on the court full strength, and no protective whatever. Look, I'm not a doctor. Certainly when it involves the injury, whatever it might be, whether it's a break or whatever, involves your shooting hand, that always concerns me a smidge more than if it wasn't. But he says he's good to go, and just like with Donnie, JJ is those two guys, Syracuse, their like prospects for the season are going to align with how the two of them play. I'm not saying there aren't other guys that are extremely important for this team, because there are. Nate George, Nate Kings, William Kyle, some of the freshmen, some of the other transfers, Tyler Betsy, Kyan, Sadiq, on and on and on. It's an interesting roster, but Syracuse will go as Donnie and JJ go. And so, and JJ, he was an all ACC freshman team player at Notre Dame his first year, came back home to Syracuse, and he's been good. I would say that his 3-point shooting is not good. Then again, most of the team last year was not good from 3-point land. So I don't expect him to have like huge numbers from deep, but if he could be serviceable there, I think that'll help him, just because he is good in the mid range and in getting to the rim. Kind of like Judah Mintz. It reminds me a little bit of like Judah Mintz in terms of at least offensive like skill set. But if he can be serviceable from 3, then that forces defenders to play up on him more and keep him honest when he's on the perimeter, and that can allow him, because he is an athletic, quick guy, to get around defenders and get to the rim and finish through contact and get to the free throw line. He's got to have a good free throw percentage. Um, so we'll see. Are Donnie and or JJ going to be all ACC players this year? Do they need to be for Syracuse to make the tournament after a 4-year absence? I don't. It's not really about like if they're all ACC. If they make the team or not. They just need to be good, and then certainly other guys need to be good. So, like I said, Nate George, he is led the ACC in assists per game last year at Georgia Tech. He is a really good point guard. Um, and there's other guys, and it's just we'll see about how whether Kyan and Sadiq and Luke Fennell get a decent amount of run as freshmen, and who else plays you know, a, even if they're reserve players, bench players, like who plays a key role for the team. But JJ, needs to be solid from deep. He needs to be really good from the free throw line. And I hate to say this, but Donnie and JJ need to be healthy. That's obviously a captain obvious statement. And injuries happen in sports, and I'm not saying Syracuse was going to be like 20-11 in the regular season last year instead of 13-18 and they're 14-19 overall. But if those two guys didn't miss any action, and it happens, and you have to adjust. But if they're gonna make a run at the NCAA tournament, those guys both have to play, if not every single game, the lion's share. So we'll see. Speaking of making it to the NCAA tournament, I love this. This is great. Carmelo Anthony, you guys have probably and gals have probably heard of him, right? He he's gonna, in addition to all the other stuff he does, his podcast, he's got like a wine company and all these other, he's just a great entrepreneur, which is really cool. Um, and he'll obviously be at a lot of Syracuse games because his son is playing on the team, Mr. Kyan Anthony. But then also, Carmelo is going to serve as a studio host for NBC. NBC is getting back the NBA coverage. I believe ABC/ESPN still is doing some of it as well. And I guess Turner is the one that lost it, which stinks because I love that show with Ernie Johnson and Shaq and Kenny the Jet Smith and Charles Barkley. But in any event, so it's NBC and Peacock, the streaming service, will have a good amount of the games, and Mello is going to be a studio analyst. I think Michael Jordan's going to be like a guest analyst, and they got some other heavyweights, and a couple of Syracuse alums will be play-by-play announcers for NBA broadcasts. Ian Eagle, his son Noah Eagle, Mike Tirico. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, Mello earlier this week was like at an NBC sports event. I think it was in Connecticut, and so like there was like this Q&A where they were asking about like Connecticut and Connecticut's rivalries with like other teams like Syracuse and Villanova or whatever. But honestly, the only thing that I cared about is Carmelo was asked who he thought would make it to the Final Four this year, and he said Cuse, and then he's like, "I'll let you know about the other three as the season goes on." So I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know if he said it tongue in cheek at all. But I mean, heck yeah, why not? Um, do I think Syracuse is going to go to the Final Four this year? Probably not. But I didn't think they were going to go in 2016. I didn't think they were going to go in 2013 when they were a 4 seed and crushed Indiana in the Sweet 16 and then Marquette in the Elite Eight. And I was at that game. That was the best. Never screamed so hard in my life, except the year that the night they won the chip in April '03. Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna. I mean, that's kind of a grand proclamation there in terms of Final Four. But look, I just want this team to be, like I said yesterday on Syracuse Central. I want them to be competitive, win some good games, not lose games they should be winning. And make a run at the tournament. And, if they're the number 6 team in the ACC or the number 3 team or the number 8 team, I don't really care about like placements per se. I just want them to play well, not get blown out by the better teams, and get in the big dance. And then you never know. And I think they can do it. I'm not saying they are going to do it. I think they can. This team on paper is definitely has a nicer roster, a better looking roster than last year, and I would argue even better than Reds' first year, 2 years ago, when they went 20-11, 20-12 overall because they lost to NC State in the first round of the ACC tournament. But yeah, I mean, what is Melo supposed to say? Of course, he's going to pick Syracuse. It's his alma mater, and his son's playing there. But it's still cool. It's still cool. So, kind of moving from that and just looking at Syracuse this season, and there was certainly, national writers, ACC writers are coming out with their, kind of like power rankings of the league, and who's looking like they, again, just conjecture, but on paper, like who's looking like they might be an NCAA tournament team, who's not, and it seems like some of the better teams, at least according to preseason thoughts, are obviously Duke. They got the Boozer brothers. They got Malik Brown, and a lot of other good guys. But Duke, Louisville looks like they have a stacked roster. I think North Carolina will be pretty good. They had a lot of turnover, but they have some good guys. And then I think NC State could be good. We'll see about Virginia, some other teams. But anyway, a lot of the kind of projections seem to have, and there was one from like USA Today, like writers, or like within the USA Today network. They had something, I think it was on Monday, where they put Syracuse at number 10 in the league out of 18 teams in basketball. And that seemed about right. I think they were picked to be 11th last year. They obviously were not good. But so, with this tip-off event, and then, the official preseason media poll, I can see them anywhere like in the 8 to 12. I don't see them being below 12. Yeah, 8 to 12, and the middle of that is 10. But it was interesting because, let me get his name right. Of course, what's his name? I had it here and I forgot. He's with The Athletic. Brendan Marks. Sorry. Senior moment there. Brendan Marks, The Athletic. He had Syracuse. It wasn't like a formal power rankings, but it was just like, these are national championship contenders, and then, this and this, and then right on the bubble. And anyway, he listed Syracuse at 6. I think it was Duke, Louisville, North Carolina, NC State, and then Virginia, and then Syracuse. So, I mean, that's, pretty bullish. And again, the numbers in terms of where they're placed right now mean jack. They don't mean anything. But what Marks wrote about, and that I agree with, is, let me get this one quote. He said Syracuse, quote, had one of the most slept on off seasons of any team in the country. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And again, I know I'm biased and have orange colored glasses on, or whatever you want to call it, and I probably said, last year that I liked the roster too, but like they did, and this is not a direct shot at guys on last year's team, but they have a way better transfer class than they did last year, in my opinion. I don't remember what it ranks over. I think like on 24/7 Sports, their 6-member transfer class was 35th. The high school class was like 17th, but overall, and this is 6 transfers and 5 prep recruits, 11. That's a humongous roster, or class combined. And I think overall it was like number 20 on 24/7 Sports. But the transfer class, it's got Nate George, who led the ACC in assists last year at Georgia Tech. Nate Kings from Oregon State. He's a redshirt senior this year. He shot 44% from 3 on high volume last year. He's a wing. I think he'll start at the 3. You've got William Kyle, who was injured for a lot of last year and didn't play well. Didn't have a great year, but he showed at a mid-major the year before. Of course, I'm blanking, but at a mid-major the year before that, he at least showed his defensive skill sets. But certainly the center spot is, if you have a question mark on this roster, that would probably be it, because the other 2 guys are unproven as well. One's a freshman, Diawara, and then Soare is I think he's a redshirt sophomore from Georgia Tech, but he didn't play a ton last year. So, but they're more athletic at that position, but definitely unproven. But then, like I mentioned earlier, you got a former Syracuse prep recruit in Tyler Betsy. He's a sophomore. He transferred from Cincinnati. That dude was a top 50 national prospect. I used to write about him all the time. He went to a prep school in Connecticut. I don't remember if it was St. Thomas More or one of the big prep schools there. And then they got a couple other, guys on the team. They got Luke Fennell. They got Aaron Womack. They got Bryce Zephyr. Did I get that right? Guard transfer. I don't know how much time he's going to get. But, the larger point here is that they did well in the portal. And if you combine the portal with this, top 20 high school class that includes 4-star Sadiq White, who was top 30 in the country, 4-star Kyan Anthony, who was top 30 in the country. Luke Fennell, I think it was like top 125, but he was 4 stars. And he played professionally in Australia. Professionally. And then you got Womack, who was, he's a 3-star wing, and again, not the same level of competition. He played in Wisconsin, but that dude averaged, I think, 30 points a game. So, yeah, I think Syracuse did nice this offseason. And they retained their 2 key guys, and I'm sure that wasn't cheap in terms of NIL, Freeman and Starling. So, again, on paper, yeah, sure, why not? And then their schedule, it's manageable. They got those neutral site games in Vegas. They got a lot of home games that are absolutely winnable. I think they could go 10-3 in the non-conference, if not better. In the ACC, it's not murderer's row, so to speak. I think they have North Carolina twice. I'm pretty sure they only have Duke and Louisville once. Sorry if I'm mistaken there. But the larger point is, I think the schedule is manageable. I really do. And so, Marks, the athletic guy, he wrote, let me just get, the pieces are there for the Cuse to make the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2021. Now Autry just has to prove he can coach this group to its potential. And that's that he hit he nailed it with that. And you all, if you listen to this show, that I got mad respect and love for Autry and Griff and all those guys. Like, I was at school at the same time Griff was. I didn't know him. I'm not saying I'm friends with him, but I respect them. And if it doesn't work out this year and there's a new staff, I'll still always have love for him. But if we're being honest here, Autry's Red's got to show that he can coach. And I've said all along, if this year is a dud and he gets, relieved of his duties, maybe Adrian Autry is a really, really excellent associate head coach at a high major, and he can recruit like nobody's business. Maybe that's him. I'm not wanting that for him. I'm just saying maybe that's what it is. On the flip side, if he's got a healthy roster this year, and yes, 11 of the 13 scholarship guys are new to the program, but if he gets them to gel and be cohesive, play cohesively, improve on defense, rebound, solid 3-point shooting, cut down on the turnovers, but he handles the X's and O's like he needs to, then yeah, I think Syracuse could be an NCAA tournament team. It doesn't mean they're gonna be, but they could be. And I get the context. Syracuse is 34-31 in the 2 seasons where Autry has been the head coach. They were 14-19 last year. They haven't made the NCAA tournament for the last 4 seasons, and frankly, they haven't been all that good ever since they joined the ACC. That first season, 2013-2014, yeah, they started out 25-0. They slid at the end. They lost in the second round to Dayton in the tournament. They finished 28-6, second in the conference. But after that, how many times have they finished in the top half? And yeah, they went to a Final Four in 16, went to Sweet 16s in 18 and 21, which, Jim Boeheim would always say, all that matters is the tournament. And I don't say all that matters is the tournament. What matters the most is the tournament. But if you stink in the regular season and then every year you're like sweating out Selection Sunday and yeah, you go on a deep run once in a while, but you're hovering around 500, that's not a top tier program. And if you look at the years right before that, when they were in the Big East, they were number one seeds a couple of times, went to a Final Four and Elite Eight. They were 30-1 in a regular season. I mean, that's a different kind of program. And I know the ACC is a different animal, and they had the sanctions and guys leaving early or getting injured and all this other crap. And so fine. But like, anyway, my point here is that it's understandable if certain, members of the media are not super optimistic about Syracuse this year. And of course, all this preseason stuff is thrown out the window once they open their season against Binghamton in early November, and they start winning games. And all this stuff right now we're talking about is pointless, but not pointless. It doesn't mean anything anymore. But yeah, I can understand, and folks not necessarily thinking they're going to be a top 4 to 6 team in the ACC and probably won't get in the tournament. Fine. So Syracuse, go out and win some games and prove everyone wrong. But I'll leave it at this. I do think that Syracuse did a really solid job in the portal, and credit the staff, including Alex Klein, the GM, who wasn't there for the last offseason. They did a great job. And we'll just see how it all comes together. I'm excited for basketball, especially because I got to say, I'm still going to be doing plenty of football stuff and recruiting for both sports on Syracuse Central. And I love Fran Brown and what he's doing. But it does feel like a little bit of the air was taken out of the tires. Is that the cliche? Just because of obviously peanut butter and jelly, thinking of him, because he got the season-ending injury and, Collins has struggled and the team struggled, not just him. And so, they're 3-3 and are on a bye week. So I feel like I'm kind of taking a step back from football for a few days just to get into basketball. But we'll be back on football. Don't worry about that. But I'm excited for basketball. I think, I hope it's just the time is right for Syracuse. I'm not saying they're going to be 28-3 in the regular season and be a 1 seed in the tournament. But, what would be cool? Not get blown out against good teams, not lose to teams you should beat, and go 22-9 in the regular season. Win, dare I say it, more than one game in the ACC tournament. Get a 4 to 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. Win a game or two. Even if you lose in the second round as a 6 seed to the 3 seed, fine, so be it. Or get to the Sweet 16, or go on a run and, Melo says, go to the Final Four. But you know what I'm saying? Just be I don't want to sweat out Selection Sunday. That stinks. It's not fun. And it's been 4 years. And, I'm not saying Syracuse is number 6 all time in program in the sports history in terms of wins. I think they're 6 or 7. And obviously the program's been on kind of a, decline late. But, there's no reason that they can't still be a really good basketball program. And I know some people say, well, then you got to have a new head coach. Well, John Wildhack said he's given, Autry his return. He's coming back. He's here. Everyone knows the goal is the NCAA tournament. And if they fall short of that, then we'll see what happens. But I'm going to try and be optimistic. And I'm excited for the season. I'm excited for Vegas. They're playing my son's favorite team, or second favorite team, Tennessee, in the ACC SEC Challenge. And it's just, I think it'll be a fun roster. I think they're going to be athletic. They'll get up and down. Melo will be at games. Maybe he'll bring some famous friends with him, and it'll be a fun season, and hopefully a winning season. So I'll leave it at that. I hope you like this episode. I've been enjoying talking about Syracuse basketball the last couple of days. We'll get back into football later this week. As always, drop me comments about what you like and don't like. This is Neil Adler with Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Again, have a great rest of your Wednesday, my friends. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Take care.